Hello, my name is Chewy Chong. I'm the developer evangelist for Microsoft Singapore. I've got a good buddy of mine here from Australia, Ken Schaefer. He's the IIS MVP. We used to work together back in Australia, and this was the go-to guy. Well, he still is the go-to guy for pretty much anything I need to know technically. I can usually ask this guy. He knows a lot about, he makes it up. His secret is he actually goes and looks it up and tells him the answer because I'm too lazy to look it up. But, well, we have him here. He stopped over to visit me on his way over to Kuala Lumpur for Tech Ed 2006. And he has volunteered to help us give a little demo on IIS7. So IIS7, what's new about it?
Well, we've got a whole bunch of changes coming with IIS7. Certainly in IIS 6.0, the product group had to put a lot of effort into improving security and reliability. And with IIS7, the changes are probably in areas that didn't get as much focus last time around. So things like configuration, extensibility, new administration tools, new troubleshooting and diagnostic tools. They've got a lot of work that's been done on those in IIS 7.0. And we've also improved some of the security aspects as well by breaking down IIS into a lot of individual separate components. So really those 5 areas are probably the main improvements with IIS 7.0.
Now with IIS 7 right now, right, where can you actually go through and use them? Do you need to download Longhorn server to actually play with IIS 7?
Yeah, IIS 7 will ship with both Vista, the high-end SKUs in Vista, and also with Longhorn server. So if you're able to get hold of the betas or the community tech previews of Vista, then you'll be able to install IIS 7 at the moment, just using the normal Windows add and remove components setup wizard, and it'll also ship with Longhorn server. The good thing about IIS 7 in Vista is that a lot of those restrictions that we had with IIS 5.1 in Windows XP, only being able to run one website, having a maximum of 10 concurrent HTTP connections, all of that stuff's gone. So if you're running IIS 7.0 in Vista, you can create as many websites as you like. There's no artificial restrictions on the number of HTTP connections. What there'll probably be is some kind of workload governor. So you won't be able to run IIS 7 on Vista as a full-blown web server serving hundreds of clients, because it'll just queue up the requests and the performance will start to get slower and slower and slower. But if you just want to test multiple websites, you can have 10, 50, 100 connections. That's all fine. There's no problems at all there. So you can use Vista as a proper testing platform.
So seriously, right now IIS 7 in Vista,
yep.
It's pretty full-blown. You can play around with it.
Yep, absolutely.
So they're going to still make improvements to IIS 7, I'm assuming, right, for Longhorn?
Yep. The IIS 7 that's in Vista, depending on the build, there's still some little bits and pieces missing, but when it ships, it'll be feature complete. There will be some additional work done on IIS 7 for the Longhorn server release, probably around fixing some scalability things and so forth, and those improvements will be rolled into a service pack for Vista, or a service pack 1.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Now, it's interesting because I was playing around with IIS 7, right? When you install it, it looks actually very different than an install back in XP.
Absolutely.
So you were saying how when you do the install, it's now all componentized.
That's correct. So with IIS 6 and IIS 5, everything was implemented in one large DLL, well, pretty much just a couple of large DLLs, w3core.dll, for example. With IIS 7.0, what they've done is broken that all out into a large number of individual modules. So there's over 40 individual DLLs that you can choose whether you want to install or not. So there are a couple of benefits that come from that. The first thing is around security. So if you're not using a particular feature, you no longer have to have that code installed on your machine. Whereas with IIS 6.0, because you only had this one big DLL that implemented all the functionality of IIS, you had no choice whether you want to have this potentially vulnerable code on your system or not. You had to install all of IIS or none of IIS. So
can you show us?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. You can have a look.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is my Vista box here. I've just got a simple home page that I can load. If we have a look in Process Explorer at the moment, I'll just get rid of this in the corner. Inside our W3WP process, we can see that there's a large number of DLLs that have been loaded here, and these implement functionality that we may not be using. For example, digest authentication, client certificate mapping to Active Directory user accounts. What we can do is go into our new central configuration file, which is called applicationhost.config. And if I find the correct section, what we can do is unload specific modules that we don't need. So I'll just comment out all the modules that we have here. So there's two sections that we need to do this. There's a global definition and then also a list of modules that a particular site uses. So I'll just remove all the modules that we don't need. And since it's just a basic HTML page, all we need is the modules that allow us to load our basic HTML pages. So we need some modules such as a default document and static file handler and so forth, and that's about it.
So back in IIS6, all this just came with everything pretty much, right?
That's right. You got a couple of very large DLLs, and that implemented all the functionality that you had on the system.
So now in IIS7, they just simply broken out all that functionality inside those IIS6 DLLs.
Yep.
Right, and then you can just go through and say add and choose whichever one that you need and you want, right?
That's correct.
So the purpose of this is kind of performance and also to reduce the security footprint.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
So so the second, in addition to security, you only need to patch those things that you actually have installed on your box. The second thing here is that it can improve performance, because instead of needing to load all of the code that you have in IIS, you can just load those specific individual modules that you want, and that reduces the footprint of IIS. So what we'll do here is just recycle our default application pool, and then if we reload our page, it still comes up, but if we go back to Process Explorer,
right,
and look at our W3WP process, all of those modules that we used to see here before, such as digest authentication and so forth, they're all gone, right? So we only have a few modules now loaded. For example, this anonymous authentication provider. There's a handful of basic Windows DLLs which are used as well, but we only see, in terms of IIS DLLs, default document, custom errors, anonymous authentication. All the rest of the DLLs, they're all gone. So they're no longer loaded in memory, and there's no way that a piece of malicious code, a worm or a virus, could exploit a potential vulnerability in that. And it also means that in terms of applying patches, you only need to apply patches when and if there's a patch for a particular piece of code that you're actually using.
I got you. So if you're you're in an environment and all you're doing is simple anonymous authentication, you don't need to do any type of authentication beyond just anonymous people coming, like a public website, right?
That's right.
And you're just serving up static pages.
That's
you
right.
can simply just have whatever the module is required to do basic, no authentication whatsoever, right? Anonymous authentication.
That's right.
And just HTML, and that's it.
Right.
Nothing else.
That's correct. That's correct.
Oh wow! So the footprint can be extremely small.
It can be.
Okay.
And even if you want to add just something like ASP pages, for example, it's only a matter of enabling, 2 additional modules. You need to enable an ISAPI extension module, and you need to enable an ASP module. So, to enable basic dynamic pages with, say, ASP or ASP.NET is just another 1 or 2 modules. You don't need to enable CGI, you don't need to enable WebDAV, you don't need to enable all those other extra components to get dynamic pages, in addition to just a simple static file server.
Okay, that's actually really cool.
Okay.
It is very, very cool. All right, so if that's the case and how everything's all broken up into modules, right, does that mean that you can go through and create, new, what would the word be? Customized functionality? I mean, the fact that broken all up into all these little modules, that means that you can potentially write your own modules? That's correct.
That's the second major change that's coming with IIS7. Previously with IIS, there was a way to extend IIS, an API called ISAPI, and you could write an ISAPI filter, which was able to look at all the requests, or you could write an ISAPI extension, which extended the IIS functionality. The problem with IIS was that IIS itself wasn't written using ISAPI, so there was no way that you could replace any of the IIS components yourself. All you could do is build on top of IIS. With IIS 7.0, all the modules that they've written have been written to public APIs. So there's a native Windows 32, a Win32 API, and there's a managed API as well. So all of these modules have been written using that public API. So you can quite literally either add your own additional modules using those APIs, or you can replace any of these modules that have been supplied by the product group with your own, as long as they're written to one or other of these APIs. So if you don't like the way the basic authentication module works, for example, because it only authenticates Windows accounts, you can write your own basic authentication module, and you can hook it up to, well, whatever type of direct, authentication system you like. So you could authenticate people against usernames in a database, or you could authenticate it to your enterprise directory, whatever that might happen to be. If you don't like the way the default document system works, or the directory browsing module, or anything, you can just write your own module, load it into the system, and replace the one that comes out of the box from IIS. So it's entirely possible not only to build a server that only has the components you need, but you can customize those components to work exactly the way you want them to work as well.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
So I've got an example of how that works. If you
that'd be great.
Yep,
that'd be actually really good.
So this is our website again, and what I've done is restored our application host.config back to the way it was. We have got a file. I've got a folder here, which is just a list of images. So we can just have a look at those images. But the actual directory listing is exactly the same as what we've looked at for the last 10 years or so.
It's been since IIS begun.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing's really changed here. So this functionality is provided by the default directory browsing module that comes with IIS. So what we can do is replace that with our own customized directory browsing module.
So this is an example of how this functionality built into the old IIS has now been broken out and exposed.
That's right. Well, It's been broken out into a directory browsing module.
Yep.
And what we can do is replace that directory browsing module with our own customized directory browsing module, so that you get a different experience when you come to a folder such as this.
I gotcha.
Which just has a listing of files.
Yep.
So Bill Staples from the IIS product group actually wrote a directory listing module. Just wrote it in C#. It's about 200 lines of code. It took him apparently about 2 hours to write, and it looks like this. So it's all written in managed code. Implements standard .NET interfaces.
So this is pretty cool. So pretty much all this, like back then with ISAPI, the old ISAPI. I mean, what did you have to write ISAPI?
You had to write everything in C++. If you wrote an ISAPI extension, you'd have to manage your own thread pools. It was difficult to debug.
Right.
There weren't a lot of samples out there on the net. Whereas being able to write all this stuff now in managed code means you can leverage all that experience that your developers already have with writing managed code,
right.
And you get all the goodness with managed code, automatic garbage collection and all the memory management taken care of you and so forth.
That's actually really cool. So now, since everything's broken out, you can actually go through and replace these modules with managed code modules.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So what I've done is I've just compiled those down into DLLs, and I copied them into the bin folder of the website. I've got a couple of additional config things we need to put into our web.config file just to enable the use of these modules. So I'll just paste them into paste them in. Save that. And just recycle our app pool for good luck. And when we hit refresh, we get a completely different experience now when we view our gallery. So instead of just getting a listing of files, basically what that code's done is it's used some file system classes to have a look at all the files and folders within that folder. And if it's an image type, like a JPEG or a GIF, it's created the thumbnail of that particular image. The existing folders have got nice folder icons, and if we click on an image, we get a much nicer view of the image itself.
Okay, so that thing you just showed, the replacement of a module, right? That's you said that's kind of how's that related to ISAPI filters and all that? I mean, this is something part of the pipeline you mentioned.
Well, pretty easiest with the.
Let me move my camera here.
Yep. All right. With IIS6, we had an IIS pipeline.
Right.
So this is where your request would come in, and your ISAPI filters would be here.
Right.
So they would have a look at all the requests coming in and out of the system.
Right.
Once the request had gone through the IIS pipeline, we would work out which ISAPI extension would handle the request. So if it was an ASP request, it would be handled by the ASP ISAPI extension. If it was an ASP.NET request, then it would be handled by the ASP.NET ISAPI extension. So, so if it was an ASPX page, we would hand it across to ASP.NET, and then we would have a separate ASP.NET pipeline where we'd have various modules and so forth in there.
So with the ISAPI extension, only one extension would the destination be, where the request go, right?
That's correct.
So you can't go to multiple of them.
That's right.
Okay.
So if the request was an ASP page, it would only go to ASP. If it was a HTML page, it would go to a static file handler.
Okay.
If it was an ASP.NET page, it would go over here. And we would do additional processing here in ASP.NET. So that's your ASP.NET modules. And we would have an ASP.NET handler configured here, and then the request would go back out again.
Okay.
With IIS7,
right.
This is one of the additional things. With IIS7, we only have one pipeline now.
Right.
Okay. And the request comes in through this pipeline, so we still have our filters here, our legacy filters. And then instead of having IIS events and then a separate set of ASP.NET events, we have just one set of events for authentication and authorization. And into these events hook various modules. So all the modules that come out of the box, for example, hook into these events.
Right.
All of the modules that you get with ASP.NET also hook into these events. Okay. And any modules that you write will hook into these events. So you can either use Win32 or you can use IHTTP module. Right. Implement that in a managed code, and you can hook into, say, the authentication event.
Okay. So what you just did right there with the replacing the
directory browsing module.
Exactly.
Yep. So that's basically a module that implements our HTTP module, and we hook it into one of these events here in the pipeline. Probably the more radical thing is that the stuff that you get out of the box with ASP.NET, which are ASP.NET modules like forms authentication, also hook into these events now. Right. So you have forms authentication hooking into every request that comes through the pipeline, not just ASP.NET requests, right? So that means that if you've got a static file, right, it can still be protected using a forms authentication module or any other module that you might want to write, whether it's directory browsing or it might be your own custom authentication module. Right. And you can write that in managed code, and even though it's a static file, it will still be protected by your managed module. Whereas before, managed modules were only invoked when you had an ASP.NET request, like a request
I
for an
gotcha. Because in
ASP.NET
your old
page.
diagram, you're saying that since ASP.NET was an ISAPI extension, right? Only things destined for ASP.NET will actually get down over there.
That's right.
So
That's
only
correct.
then. So now you're saying that since you can actually put this in a pipeline that's all part of IIS7, you can actually do this before.
That's correct.
So that means you can protect like PHP pages and all that too?
That's absolutely correct. So up here, it doesn't matter if you've got a PHP page or an ASP page or a Perl page. It doesn't really matter. All the requests will come in here and they'll be handed off at the end, but you're still able to, for example, to use forms authentication to protect your classic ASP pages or your static files or even your PHP pages. So if you have legacy classic ASP applications, for example, and you wanted to use some of the features that come with .NET, like caching and forms authentication and so forth, before, your only real mechanism was to port the whole application across to ASP.NET. Whereas with IIS7, you can actually keep your classic application without having to move it, but you're still able to protect it with managed .NET modules.
I gotcha. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably one of what's going to be one of the big extra benefits of IIS 7.0. I mean, certainly things like security and new administration tools and so forth make it easier to administer IIS 7. But this type of functionality, this extensibility functionality and the modularity is what's going to allow you to add additional business value on top of IIS 7, because you're going to be able to build a web server that's exactly customized to the way you want it to run, with only the components that you want, and you're able to do that all in managed code.
So this is pretty cool. So I guess the biggest point there is like everything is now exposed to managed code.
Yes,
managed code can go through and touch everything.
That's correct.
So you don't need to have C++ just to build the ISAPI. So you can customize, right?
Yep.
So it's all managed code. It's definitely highly customizable now, right? It's for .NET developers specifically, right? You also have reduced footprint. You only use what you need.
That's correct.
That type of thing. Okay, that's really cool. That's really cool. What else is there?
Okay, another big change that's coming is the configuration system.
Okay.
With previous versions of IIS, we had one big monolithic metabase, the metabase.bin or metabase.xml.
Oh yeah, I gotta love the metabase.
And only administrators could make changes to the metabase.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you could change the ACLs within the metabase to allow other users to make changes to specific sections, but it was quite difficult to develop a proper delegation system.
Right.
With IIS 7.0, we're changing the configuration system, so it works the same way as ASP.NET works. Right. So you have a central configuration file. So at ASP.NET, you have machine.config at the top. And then you have the root web.config for your ASP.NET 2.0 settings. And then for each site, you have a web.config file. And this is what allowed you to do delegation, really, because each site administrator could create their own web.config file, and that would customize how that website will work.
Right.
Well, the same thing works now with ASP.NET.
Right.
We have a central file called applicationhost.config, where we store all our central IIS 7 settings, and that's an XML file, just like web.config and machine.config. And then for each website, we can put settings into the web.config file. We saw that a little bit in the demonstration before. So our ASP.NET settings go into a section called system.web, which everyone's kind of familiar with, developing .NET over the last few years.
Right.
And our IIS 7 settings will go into a section called system.webserver.
Right.
And that means that if you need to customize IIS just for your particular website, for example, you can just put those settings into your web.config file and xcopy that or FTP that up to your website, and then IIS will be reconfigured for your particular site.
So the metabase is now converted to XML files, and it follows the same type of inheritance setting like ASP configuration. ASP.NET configuration. Okay,
that's correct.
So you said you can just make the change to the application host file in your application, and if the application host configuration in the hierarchy allows you to go through make customizations, then you can do that.
That's correct. So, for example, things like enabling directory browsing or changing default documents and all that type of stuff, where previously you'd have to call up an administrator to make that change for you, or add in custom HTTP headers or anything like that. You'd have to call an administrator to do that. You can now make those changes in your web.config file and just simply FTP that up to your site. There is still a permission system, right? You can't just make any change to IIS that you like. In the application host.config file, each setting can either be locked or unlocked. If it's locked, then changes cannot be made at a lower level. If it's unlocked, then changes can be made at a lower level. So at each level in the hierarchy, the administrator at that level can decide whether a change can be made at a lower level or not for that particular setting.
So this is just like Active Directory and group policy to just the whole concept of inheritance, blocking inheritance, all that type of stuff.
That's correct. So at any higher level, an administrator can block people at a lower level from making changes to that particular type of option.
Oh, that's actually really cool. So let me get this straight. This really would make any type of hosting situation a lot easier.
Absolutely, because instead of people perhaps needing to use a third-party tool to allow their customers to administer the site, or have to have their customers, raise a support ticket in order to get a change made. you can simply allow your customers to make changes to particular types of settings, and they just create their web.config file as they do at the moment with their ASP.NET settings, but also with their IIS settings, and they just FTP that up to the server along with their content, and their IIS website is configured exactly the way they need it.
Okay.
So
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Speaking of hosting, one of the other changes that's coming with hosting is the admin tool for IIS. The admin tool before the IIS manager, it uses RPC to communicate, so it's not so good in a hosting situation because you don't allow RPC to connect to your web server.
Yeah, exactly.
But the new IIS manager uses HTTP or HTTPS if you want to secure the connection. So it uses HTTP to connect to the web server, and there's a remote management service that you can enable on the web server if you want to allow that type of remote management. So any of your customers can open up the IIS manager on their machine at home. They can just install that using add remove programs, and they can define a new connection, and they type in the web server that they need to connect to. It connects using HTTP calls, and when they connect, they don't see the entire IIS tree, right? They only see the website or the web application that they're actually got permissions to administer, right? So whereas in IIS6, only administrators could open the IIS manager, and they would see the entire hierarchy, all the websites, all the FTP sites, and so forth. Whereas this new IIS manager, when it connects, it validates the user's credentials and works out what types of things that user is allowed to see, and it'll only present the relevant sections that the user has permissions to. So each customer that you have, if they're only allowed to have one site, then when they connect with the IIS manager, they'll only see the one site that they're able to administer.
Wow.
And then they can make changes.
So IIS7 is definitely a lot more hoster friendly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Do you have any demos or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I can show you quickly the configuration system. I mean, what we had here before, for example, was my home page. And it's called home.htm. But if I wanted to access that without having to type in the actual file name, I'd have to get the default document changed, or I'd have to rename this to say index.htm. Right. But what I can do now in my web.config is
classic example, because typically you need to modify this in the metabase, right?
That's right.
Right.
So I can add an additional acceptable default.
So I see exactly what you mean. What happened here is you don't have to make any submission request to the administrator, right?
That's right.
And the administrator, you can just go through and upload this file as long as it's configured by the hoster to allow you to do something like this, and you can do this.
So that still works, and we should now, and now we can access it using requesting that without supplying the file at all. And just to actually, what I should have done is made sure that it actually doesn't work with this with that section in it. So if that section wasn't there, then actually,
you're right.
That
shows you the
folder listing. Yeah, sorry, this is our
directory
browsing thing. So we'd have to take that out as well, actually. If I get rid of that as well, if I get rid of the directory browser, so there we got the forbidden thing. It says that there's it's probably a little bit difficult to see, but it says a default document is not configured for the requused URL. So what would happen there is we'd have to type in the exact file name.
Yeah, I don't know why you're pointing at the screen, because I think you're pointing
okay,
at the screen.
sorry. Just have it, but yeah, if we've got that, we put that default document section back in.
Yep.
Oops, and it's still not working. Yeah, I've saved it. The problem is, it's still beta, so sometimes the file change notifications and so on don't kick in properly, so that's why I'm always recycling these app pulls. Right. So there we go. So it's back again.
Okay, and that's actually really cool.
Yep.
That's really cool. Now, you said the IIS administrator management console has changed, right? Is it still an MMC thing, or is it...
Yeah, it's based on MMC version 3 now, but it's been completely redesigned. The problem with the old IIS manager was that it kind of grew from version to version, and as new features got added,
they just added new property dialogues, but
Right.
things are it was sort of you open a dialog box, and then you open a property page, and then you open another property page, and some things were buried 3 or 4 property pages down.
Right.
And sometimes when you need to configure things in multiple different places,
Right.
it wasn't always all in one property page. You
Right.
have to open one here and one there and
Right.
one somewhere else.
Right.
So what they've done with the new IIS manager is they started from a completely blank slate.
Yep.
They've reorganized everything, so you'll have to learn where everything is again. But it's all been now much more logically organized, so it'll be much easier to find things now. And the other benefit is that they've combined the ASP.NET settings with the IIS settings within the same tool, so you can configure all the stuff that you configure in your ASP.NET configuration files
Right.
using a GUI tool,
Right.
just like you can with your IIS settings.
Right.
So, this is the new IIS manager. At the top, we see these first 9 icons here for ASP.NET,
Right.
and then we've got another 14 or so icons here for IIS, configuring all the IIS sections. And these will, depending on which node you configure them at, it could put the settings into your application host.config, or it may put the settings into a lower level web.config, depending on which level you are here in this tree.
Okay. You know what? I just realized
Mhm.
it's 2:54. You have a plane to catch in a couple
Absolutely.
hours, right?
Yep.
We're gonna cut the demo short.
Okay.
then.
Yep.
But listen, I really do appreciate you taking the time out to sharing this all this good stuff with the guys here in Singapore. So I really appreciate that. So
my
next time
pleasure.
you're in town, you can do another video for us.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay, cool. Well, have fun at TechEd, right?
Thank you.
All right. Hey, if you guys want to see Ken's presentation at TechEd, what day are you presenting?
It's at 10 o'clock on Thursday.
10 o'clock on Thursday at the Kuala Lumpur TechEd 2006.
Yeah.
So if you guys in town, definitely go check out his session. I will also put information about his blog. What's your blog address again?
I'll send it to you in an email.
Okay, send an email. But in a second, you'll see this on the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
and that will be his blog address. Go definitely check it out. Ken is a wealth of information. So again, this is a great guy to have talk to us, right? Thanks again.
Thanks, Chewy.
Right.